The celestial dominion had ruled over the galaxy for over 1,000 generations, their vast empire spanning countless star systems and civilizations. They considered themselves the rightful and absolute masters of the cosmos, their technological and military might second to none. The very concept of a species like mankind, a race they had long dismissed as primitive and inconsequential, ever posing a threat to their dominance, was simply unthinkable. Yet, as the massive Dominion fleet patrolled the outer edges of their territory, a lone sensor station detected an anomaly. A single vessel, its signature unlike anything they had encountered before, breaching the borders of their domain. Alarms blared throughout the command center as the station's director rushed to notify the nearest Dominion fleet of this unsanctioned intrusion. "This is Outpost Theta 7. We have an unidentified vessel entering our space. Request immediate assistance from the 47th Expeditionary Fleet," the director transmitted, his voice betraying a hint of unease. Within moments, the response came, the tone crisp and authoritative. "Outpost Theta 7, this is the Dominion battlecruiser Kelvac. We are en route to your location, and will intercept the intruder. Stand by for further instructions." The massive Dominion warship, bristling with advanced weaponry and shielding, accelerated towards the coordinates provided, its pilots and gunners already priming their systems for the inevitable confrontation. Such breaches of Dominion space were exceedingly rare, and the penalty for such trespassing was severe. As the Kelvac closed in, the sensors painted a clearer picture of the intruder, a vessel unlike anything the Dominion had encountered before. Its sleek, angular design was completely foreign, and its drive signature defied all known principles of propulsion technology. The Dominion captain frowned, his fingers flying over the tactical console as he analyzed the incoming data. "Sir, the intruder is not responding to our hails and is maintaining course," one of the bridge officers reported. "Scans show its weapons are charged and shields are raised." "Curious," the captain mused, his brow furrowed. "Have all batteries target that vessel and prepare to open fire. I want to know what kind of technology allows a single ship to so brazenly violate our borders." The Kelvac's weapons batteries unleashed a barrage of devastating energy pulses and plasma torpedoes, the sheer firepower easily capable of tearing apart even the mightiest of enemy vessels. Yet, to the captain's astonishment, the intruder's shields shimmered and absorbed the bombardment with ease, not a single shot finding its mark. "Impossible," the captain exclaimed. "Redirect all available power to our weapons, maximum output. I want that ship disabled or destroyed." The bridge crew scrambled to comply, straining the Kelvac systems to their limits. But no matter how relentless the Dominion assault, the intruder's defenses held firm, not even a single hull plate breached. Suddenly, the intruder vessel's main drive flared to life, its propulsion system unlike anything the Dominion had ever witnessed. A rift in the very fabric of space-time opened before it, and with a blinding flash, the ship vanished, leaving the Kelvac and its bewildered crew alone in the void. "What sorcery is this?" the captain muttered, his knuckles white as he gripped the edge of the tactical console. "Hail the outpost. I want a full report on this abomination immediately." The communication officer's fingers flew over the controls, but after several attempts, a grim expression settled on his face. "Sir, there is no response from Outpost Theta 7. All channels are dark." The captain's eyes narrowed, a growing sense of unease settling in the pit of his stomach. "Helm, set course for the outpost's coordinates. Maximum speed. Something is very wrong." As the Kelvac raced towards the distant outpost, the captain's mind whirled with questions. What was the nature of this intruder vessel? How had it breached the Dominion's defenses with such ease? And what had become of the outpost, once a vital link in their border security network? When the Kelvac finally arrived at the outpost coordinates, the sight that greeted them was one of utter devastation. The once bustling facility had been reduced to a field of burning debris, its shields and defenses utterly overwhelmed. Escape pods and wreckage drifted aimlessly in the void, a grim testament to the station's final moments. The captain's face hardened as he surveyed the scene. "Deploy search and rescue teams immediately. I want survivors brought aboard, and send a priority transmission to the Dominion High Command. They must be informed of this incursion." As the Dominion crew scrambled to carry out their orders, the captain's mind raced with the implications of what had just transpired. If a single, unknown vessel could so easily decimate a well-fortified outpost, what chance did the Dominion have against the full might of this new, unidentified threat? The Celestial Dominion, a civilization that had ruled the stars for millennia, now found itself facing a challenge unlike any it had ever encountered. The appearance of this alien dreadnought had shaken the very foundations of their empire, and the captain knew that the ramifications of this event would reverberate throughout the galaxy. As the Kelvax engines propelled the battered vessel back towards the Dominion's core worlds, the captain steeled himself for the difficult conversations that lay ahead. The very future of the Dominion was at stake, and he would need to convince the High Command to take this threat with the utmost seriousness. For if the Dominion could not find a way to counter this new enemy, their reign over the cosmos might be coming to a bitter end. The news of the attack on Outpost Theta 7 spread through the Dominion's command structure like wildfire. The captain's harrowing report, detailing the mysterious intruder vessel's effortless decimation of the well-defended facility, set off a flurry of activity within the Dominion's military leadership. In the grand halls of the Dominion High Command, the assembled admirals and generals listened with growing unease as the captain recounted the encounter. Their meticulously crafted strategies and technological superiority, honed over centuries of conquest, had been rendered all but useless against this strange new adversary. "Impossible," one senior admiral growled, his cybernetic eye glowing with barely contained rage. "Our weapons should have torn that vessel apart. How could a single, unidentified ship breach our defenses so easily?" The captain shifted uncomfortably under the admiral's piercing gaze. "I wish I had more answers, honored admiral. But the simple truth is, this intruder vessel possesses capabilities that defy all known principles of physics and engineering. Its shields shrugged off our volleys as if they were nothing, and its method of propulsion allowed it to disappear into a rift in space-time." A hush fell over the chamber as the gravity of the captain's words sank in. For the Dominion, whose technological mastery was the foundation of their galactic supremacy, such a blatant challenge to their understanding of the universe was deeply unsettling. Finally, a wizened fleet commander, his weathered features etched with concern, spoke up. "If what you say is true, then we must act swiftly. This intruder poses a grave threat to the Dominion, one that we cannot afford to ignore. I propose we mobilize our entire fleet to hunt down and destroy this vessel before it can strike again." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly, but the Dominion High Arbiter, the supreme commander of the Celestial Dominion's forces, raised a hand, silencing the room. "While I share your concern, Fleet Commander, we must tread carefully. This is no ordinary adversary we face. Rushing headlong into battle without fully understanding our enemy's capabilities would be a grave mistake. We must first gather more intelligence, discover the nature of this intruder's technology, and devise a strategic plan to counter it." The High Arbiter turned his gaze to the captain, his piercing eyes cutting through the officer like a razor's edge. "Captain, you will return to the site of the attack and conduct a thorough investigation. Salvage what you can from the wreckage and bring it back for our scientists to analyze. We must leave no stone unturned in our quest to unravel this mystery." The captain nodded solemnly, knowing full well the gravity of the task he had been entrusted with. "It will be done, High Arbiter. I will personally oversee the recovery effort and ensure that every scrap of information is brought back to the Dominion." As the captain departed, the High Arbiter addressed the rest of the assembled leaders. "In the meantime, I am placing the entire Dominion military on high alert. All fleets are to report to their designated sectors and prepare for potential incursions. We must be vigilant, for the safety of our empire hangs in the balance." The admirals and generals saluted in unison, their faces grim with determination. They knew that the appearance of this mysterious intruder vessel had shattered the Dominion's long-held belief in their own invincibility. The very foundations of their civilization were now under threat, and they would need to marshal every resource at their disposal to protect their way of life. Back at the site of the attack, the Kelvax's crew worked tirelessly, scouring the debris field for any clues that might shed light on the intruder's origins and capabilities. The wreckage of Outpost Theta-7 had been reduced to a twisted, smoldering ruin, and the recovery teams found precious few intact components to study. As the captain oversaw the salvage operation, his mind raced with the implications of what they had witnessed. If a single vessel could so easily overwhelm a well-defended outpost, what hope did the Dominion's fleets have of standing against it? The very notion that their technological superiority could be so effortlessly nullified was a bitter pill to swallow. Yet, even as he grappled with these unsettling thoughts, a glimmer of hope emerged from the rubble. One of the recovery teams had uncovered a partially intact sensor array, its databanks miraculously still functional. Perhaps, with the help of the Dominion's finest scientists, they could glean some insight into the nature of their new adversary. Ordering the array to be carefully extracted and prepared for transport, the captain turned his gaze towards the empty void, his jaw set with determination. The Dominion would not go down without a fight. They would uncover the secrets of this intruder vessel, and they would devise a means to counter its devastating power. The Celestial Dominion had weathered countless challenges throughout its long history, and this would be no exception. With the full might of their military and scientific resources at their disposal, they would rise to meet this new threat, no matter the cost. The future of their empire depended on it. As the news of the attack on Outpost Theta-7 spread through the Dominion's vast domain, a sense of unease and fear gripped the citizens of the Empire. For generations, the Celestial Dominion had been a bastion of stability and power, its military might unquestioned, and its technological superiority unrivaled. The very notion that a single unidentified vessel could so effortlessly breach their defenses was deeply unsettling. Throughout the Dominion's core worlds, panicked reports flooded communication channels as word of the outpost's destruction reached every corner of their civilization. Entire planetary systems went dark, their defense grids offline, and their populations paralyzed by the looming threat of the mysterious intruder. In the bustling capital city of Elysia, the seat of the Dominion's leadership, the streets were alive with a palpable sense of dread. Civilians huddled in their homes, glued to their holovids as the Dominion's propagandists scrambled to downplay the severity of the situation and reassure the populace. But the people were not fooled. They had heard the whispers, the unconfirmed reports of the intruder vessel's unstoppable power, and they knew that their vaunted empire was now facing a challenge that threatened to unravel the very fabric of their society. As the Dominion's fleets mobilized, dispatching warships to reinforce the vulnerable border regions, the High Arbiter addressed the citizens in a rare televised address. His weathered features were etched with concern, but his voice remained steady and resolute. "My fellow citizens of the Celestial Dominion, I come to you in a time of great uncertainty. An unknown vessel has breached our borders and destroyed Outpost Theta-7, a vital link in our security network. Rest assured, the Dominion's military forces are already in pursuit of this intruder, and we will not rest until it has been neutralized." The High Arbiter's words did little to calm the growing unrest, as citizens across the Dominion voiced their fears and doubts. How could their vaunted military possibly hope to stop a ship that had so effortlessly decimated a well-defended outpost? In the shadows of the capital's towering spires, the lone figure watched the citizens' reactions with a mixture of fascination and grim satisfaction. Dr. Sarah Johnson, the brilliant human scientist whose groundbreaking research had unlocked the secrets that gave the Dreadnought its devastating capabilities, had been quietly monitoring the Dominion's response from afar. She knew that the Celestial Dominion, for all its technological prowess, was woefully unprepared to face the full power of the Dreadnought and its human crew. The Dominion's leaders, trapped in their own rigid, hierarchical structures, would struggle to adapt to the fluid, innovative approach that had given mankind the edge. As the High Arbiter's address concluded, Dr. Johnson turned her attention to the readouts on her computer screen, her fingers flying across the holographic interface. The Dreadnought, her crowning achievement, was already en route to its next target, its systems primed and its crew ready to unleash the full might of human ingenuity upon the Dominion's fleets. Back aboard the Kelvac, the captain and his crew pored over the data recovered from the Theta-7 wreckage, their brows furrowed in concentration. The sensor array had yielded a wealth of information, but much of it remained maddeningly opaque, defying their understanding of physics and technology. The power output readings are off the charts, one of the lead scientists reported, her eyes wide with a mixture of awe and trepidation. Whatever propulsion system this intruder vessel uses, it's capable of generating levels of energy that should be physically impossible. The captain nodded grimly, his fingers drumming against the tactical console. And the sensors indicate the weapon systems are equally advanced. Their energy signatures don't match any known Dominion or Allied designs. It's as if this vessel is operating on an entirely different technological plane. As the crew continued their analysis, the captain's mind raced with the implications of their findings. If the Dominion could not find a way to counter this intruder's capabilities, their vaunted empire would crumble before its onslaught. The fate of the Celestial Dominion, a civilization that had endured for millennia, now hung in the balance. Across the Dominion's vast territory, the Dreadnought continued its relentless advance, its crew unfazed by the growing panic that gripped the populace. Dr. Johnson watched the unfolding events with a detached clinical interest, her lips curving into a faint smile as the Dominion's defenses were systematically dismantled. She knew that the time would soon come when the Dominion's leaders would be forced to confront the true extent of human technological superiority. The Dreadnought, a testament to the ingenuity and determination of its creators, would continue to carve a swath of destruction through the Celestial Dominion, shattering the illusion of their invincibility and paving the way for a new era in the galaxy's history. As the Kelvac's crew raced to uncover the secrets of the intruder vessel, the captain could not shake the growing sense of dread that weighed upon him. The Dominion's very existence was now at stake, and the fate of their civilization hung in the balance. Whatever lay ahead, he knew that the Celestial Dominion would be forced to confront a challenge unlike any it had ever faced before. The Dominion High Command had convened in the Grand Council chambers of the capital city of Elysia, their ranks swollen with the most esteemed admirals, generals, and fleet commanders of the Empire. The news of the attack on Outpost Theta-7 had sent shockwaves throughout the Celestial Dominion, and the leaders had gathered to devise a plan to counter this unprecedented threat. As the captains of the Kelvac and other vessels involved in the initial encounter presented their findings, the assembled officers listened with growing unease. The data they had recovered from the wreckage painted a disturbing picture. The intruder vessel's technological capabilities far exceeded anything the Dominion had ever encountered. The power output of this ship's systems is beyond our current understanding of physics, one of the lead scientists reported, her fingers trembling slightly as she manipulated the holographic displays. Its propulsion system appears to defy the very laws of spacetime, allowing it to create temporary wormholes and vanish into the void. Murmurs of disbelief and concern rippled through the chamber, and the High Arbiter raised a hand to restore order. "This is most troubling news. If what you say is true, then we are facing an adversary whose technological prowess surpasses our own. We must determine the nature of this vessel's capabilities and devise a means to neutralize it before it can strike again." One of the senior admirals, his cybernetic eye flashing with a mixture of determination and apprehension, stepped forward. "High Arbiter, I propose we mobilize our entire fleet to hunt down and destroy this intruder. Our combined firepower should be more than a match for a single ship, no matter how advanced its technology may be." The High Arbiter considered the Admiral's words, his brow furrowed in thought. "While I appreciate your zeal, Admiral, we must tread carefully. This is no ordinary enemy we face. If we rush headlong into battle without fully understanding its capabilities, we risk suffering devastating losses. Another officer, a renowned fleet commander, cleared his throat and addressed the assembly. High Arbiter, perhaps we should consider a more diplomatic approach. What if we were to attempt to make contact with this intruder vessel? Surely there must be some means of communication, some way to understand its intentions and motivations. The High Arbiter's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, the chamber fell silent. Communication with this vessel. You would have us parley with an enemy that has already demonstrated its willingness to annihilate our outposts without provocation. Preposterous. The fleet commander held his ground, his expression resolute. High Arbiter, I understand the gravity of the situation, but we must consider all options. If we can learn more about this intruder, we may be able to find a way to coexist, or at the very least, discover its weaknesses. The High Arbiter's lips thinned into a tight line, and he turned his piercing gaze upon the assembled officers. Very well, we shall explore both avenues. Captain Kelvac, you and your crew will continue your investigation, delving deeper into the mysteries of this intruder vessel. Meanwhile, I will dispatch a diplomatic envoy to attempt to make contact with this anomaly. The captain of the Kelvac stepped forward, his expression solemn. It will be done, High Arbiter. We will uncover the secrets of this vessel, no matter how long it takes. As the meeting adjourned, the Dominion's leaders dispersed, their minds whirling with the implications of what they had learned. The very foundations of their empire were now under threat, and they knew that failure to counter this new adversary could spell the end of the Celestial Dominion's reign over the stars. Across the Dominion's vast territory, the Dreadnought continued its relentless advance, its crew undaunted by the growing panic that gripped the populace. Dr. Sarah Johnson watched the unfolding events with a detached clinical interest, her lips curving into a faint smile as the Dominion's defenses were systematically dismantled. She knew that the time would soon come when the Dominion's leaders would be forced to confront the true extent of human technological superiority. The Dreadnought, a testament to the ingenuity and determination of its creators, would continue to carve a swath of destruction through the Celestial Dominion, shattering the illusion of their invincibility and paving the way for a new era in the galaxy's history. As the Kelvac's crew delved deeper into the mysteries of the intruder vessel, the captain could not shake the growing sense of dread that weighed upon him. The Dominion's very existence was now at stake, and the fate of their civilization hung in the balance. Whatever lay ahead, he knew that the Celestial Dominion would be forced to confront a challenge unlike any it had ever faced before. Meanwhile, the Dominion's diplomatic envoy, a seasoned ambassador with a reputation for resolving even the most intractable conflicts, prepared to embark on a perilous journey to make contact with the mysterious intruder. The success or failure of this mission would have far-reaching consequences, not just for the Dominion, but for the entire galaxy. As the envoy's ship set course for the last known coordinates of the Dreadnought, the Dominion's leaders held their breath, their futures now inextricably linked to the outcome of this fateful encounter. The fate of the Celestial Dominion, a civilization that had endured for millennia, now rested on the shoulders of a small, but dedicated crew, tasked with unraveling the secrets of this unprecedented threat. The Dominion's diplomatic envoy, a seasoned ambassador named Vorax, sat aboard his heavily armed cruiser, his fingers tapping nervously against the armrest of his command chair. The weight of his mission weighed heavily upon him as the ship hurtled through the void, closing in on the last known coordinates of the mysterious intruder vessel. Vorax had been carefully selected for this delicate task, his decades of experience in navigating even the most fraught interstellar negotiations, making him the Dominion's best hope of establishing contact with this unprecedented threat. But as the cruiser drew nearer, he couldn't help but feel a sense of unease creeping up his spine. "Sir, we're nearing the target coordinates," the helm officer reported, her voice tense. "Sensors are detecting the intruder vessel, but it appears to be stationary. No sign of any defensive maneuvers or weapon systems being powered up." Vorax nodded, his brow furrowed in concentration. Very well. Bring us in slowly and establish a communications link. Let's see if we can't reason with this anomaly. As the cruiser approached the Dreadnought, Vorax couldn't help but marvel at the sheer size and complexity of the alien vessel. Its sleek, angular design was unlike anything the Dominion had ever encountered, and the power emanating from its systems was palpable, even from a distance. "Hailing frequencies open, sir," the communications officer announced. "Awaiting your orders." Vorax took a deep breath, steeling himself for the delicate negotiations that lay ahead. "This is Ambassador Vorax of the Celestial Dominion, representing the High Command. We mean you no harm, but we must understand the nature of your presence in our territory. Please respond." Silence stretched on for what felt like an eternity, the tension palpable on the bridge of the cruiser. Just as Vorax was about to order the transmission repeated, a crackle of static filled the air, and a voice, deep and resonant, responded. "I am Dr. Sarah Johnson, of the planet Earth. I come in peace, but the Celestial Dominion's continued existence poses a threat to the future of my people. You have been given ample opportunity to withdraw peacefully, and yet you persist in your aggression. This leaves me no choice but to respond in kind." Vorax's eyes widened, his heart pounding in his chest. "Aggression? We have done nothing to provoke such a response. The Celestial Dominion has maintained peace and stability in this galaxy for millennia. What grievance do you have against us?" Another pause, then the voice continued, its tone eerily calm. "The Dominion's tyrannical rule over the stars has stifled the growth and potential of countless civilizations. You have ruthlessly crushed any who dare to challenge your supremacy, and you have amassed power and wealth at the expense of those you deem inferior." Vorax opened his mouth to protest, but the voice cut him off, its words laced with a resolve that sent a chill down the ambassador's spine. "No more. Mankind has emerged from the shadows, and we will not be subjugated by your empire. This Dreadnought is the first step in reclaiming the galaxy for those you have oppressed. If the Dominion chooses to stand in our way, then you will be swept aside, just as Outpost Theta 7 was." The bridge crew exchanged horrified glances, the reality of their situation sinking in. The Dominion, a civilization that had dominated the stars for millennia, now faced a threat unlike any they had ever encountered. This human, this Dr. Sarah Johnson, wielded a power that seemed to mock the very foundations of their technological superiority. Vorax's mind raced, desperately searching for a way to defuse the situation, to find some common ground that could avert the looming conflict. "Please, Dr. Johnson, there must be a way to resolve this peacefully. The Dominion has always sought to maintain order and stability throughout the galaxy. Surely we can find a compromise that benefits all." The voice replied, its tone laced with a hint of what sounded like regret. "I'm afraid it is too late for compromise, Ambassador. The Dominion's time has come to an end. My people have risen, and we will not be denied. This is your final warning. Withdraw from our path, or face the consequences." The communication link abruptly severed, leaving Vorax and his crew in stunned silence. The ambassador's hands trembled as he contemplated the gravity of the situation. The Dominion, a civilization that had endured for millennia, now found itself on the brink of collapse, facing a threat that seemed to mock the very foundations of their power. Vorax turned to the helm officer, his voice hushed and grave. "Return to the capital immediately. Inform the High Arbiter that our efforts at diplomacy have failed. The Dominion must prepare for war." As the cruiser turned and fled, the Dreadnought remained motionless, its sensors trained on the retreating vessel. Dr. Sarah Johnson watched the exchange unfold, her expression betraying a hint of regret. She had hoped to avoid bloodshed, to convince the Dominion to withdraw peacefully, but their stubborn refusal to acknowledge the changing tides of power had left her no choice. With a sigh, she turned her attention back to the Dreadnought systems, fine-tuning the intricate web of technologies that had given the vessel its overwhelming power. The time for diplomacy had passed. Now, the true test of mankind's ascendance would begin. The news of the failed diplomatic overture to the mysterious intruder vessel spread through the Dominion's command structure like wildfire. Vorax's grim report, detailing the cold, uncompromising stance of the human scientist, Dr. Sarah Johnson, sent shockwaves through the High Arbiter and the assembled military leaders. In the grand war room of the Dominion's capital, the atmosphere was tense and charged with a palpable sense of foreboding. Admirals and generals gathered around the holographic tactical display, their faces etched with a mixture of determination and apprehension. "This is an unprecedented crisis," the High Arbiter said, his voice grave. "The intruder vessel has made its position clear. It seeks to destroy the celestial dominion and assert its own dominance over the galaxy. We must mobilize our full military might to meet this threat head-on." One of the senior admirals, a seasoned veteran whose cybernetic eye glinted in the dimly lit chamber, stepped forward. "High Arbiter, I propose we assemble a massive fleet to confront this Dreadnought. Our combined firepower should be more than a match for a single ship, no matter how advanced its technology may be." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembled officers, but the High Arbiter raised a hand, silencing the room. "While I understand your urgency, Admiral, we must proceed with caution. This intruder vessel has already demonstrated capabilities that defy our understanding of physics and technology. We cannot afford to rush headlong into a battle that we may not be able to win." The Admiral's brow furrowed, his cybernetic eye flashing with a mixture of frustration and defiance. "Then what do you propose we do, High Arbiter?" "Sit idly by while this human vessel continues its advance, destroying our outposts and threatening the very existence of the Dominion." The High Arbiter met the Admiral's gaze, his expression resolute. "No, Admiral. We will not stand idle, but neither will we charge into battle without a clear understanding of our enemy's strengths and weaknesses. I have already ordered the Kelvac and other vessels to continue their investigation, to uncover the secrets of this Dreadnought's technology. Only then can we devise a strategy to counter it." Across the Dominion's vast territory, the fleets of the Celestial Dominion mobilized, their warships converging on key strategic locations, their crews on high alert for any sign of the intruder vessel's approach. The stakes had never been higher, for the fate of the Dominion's millennia-old civilization now hung in the balance. As the Kelvac's crew delved deeper into the mysteries of the Dreadnought's technology, the captain and his team of scientists made a startling discovery. The power output readings they had gathered from the Theta-7 wreckage were unlike anything they had ever encountered, defying all known principles of physics and engineering. "The energy signature of this vessel's propulsion and weapons systems is completely off the charts," one of the lead researchers reported, her eyes wide with a mixture of awe and trepidation. "It's as if it's operating on an entirely different technological plane, one that we simply don't have the understanding to comprehend." The captain's brow furrowed in concentration as he pored over the data. "Then we must find a way to understand it, to devise countermeasures before this Dreadnought reaches our core worlds. The fate of the Dominion depends on our ability to unravel these secrets." Elsewhere, aboard the human Dreadnought, Dr. Sarah Johnson watched the Dominion's preparations with a keen eye. She knew that the Celestial Dominion, for all its vaunted technological prowess, was woefully unprepared to face the full might of her creation. "They cling to their antiquated notions of power and supremacy," she murmured, her fingers dancing across the holographic interfaces that controlled the Dreadnought's systems. "But their time has passed. The age of mankind has dawned, and we will not be denied our rightful place among the stars." As the Dominion's fleets assembled, their massive warships bristling with advanced weaponry and shielding, the Dreadnought remained steadfast, its sensors monitoring the movements of its adversaries. Dr. Johnson's calculations had accounted for every eventuality, and she knew that the Dominion's best efforts would be no match for the vessel's devastating capabilities. The stage was set for a clash of titanic proportions, a battle that would forever alter the balance of power in the galaxy. The Celestial Dominion, a civilization that had endured for millennia, now found itself facing an enemy whose technological superiority threatened to sweep away the very foundations of their empire. As the rival forces converged, The tension in the air was palpable, the air thick with the anticipation of a conflict that would determine the fate of countless worlds and civilizations. The Dominion's admirals and generals steeled themselves for the coming onslaught, their resolve hardened by the knowledge that failure was not an option. In the end, the battle that ensued was a clash of titanic proportions, with the Dominion's most advanced weapons and shielding proving woefully inadequate against the Dreadnought's devastating firepower. The human vessel's ability to manipulate the very fabric of space-time rendered the Dominion's tactics and strategies obsolete, and their fleets were swept aside with terrifying ease. As the Dominion's forces crumbled, their commanders watched in horror, their once unshakable confidence shattered by the realization that their technological superiority had been an illusion all along. The Dreadnought, a symbol of mankind's newfound dominance, continued its relentless advance, its power growing with each passing moment. The Celestial Dominion, a civilization that had ruled the stars for millennia, now found itself on the brink of collapse, its very existence threatened by the unstoppable might of the human vessel and the determination of its creator, Dr. Sarah Johnson. The fate of the Dominion, and indeed, the entire galaxy, now hung in the balance. As the Dominion's forces crumbled before the might of the human Dreadnought, the Celestial Dominion's leadership found themselves in the throes of a desperate, last-ditch effort to salvage their civilization. In the grand command center of the capital city, the High Arbiter and his most trusted advisors pored over the grim reports flooding in from the front lines. The once vaunted Dominion fleets, decimated by the Dreadnought's devastating firepower, had been swept aside with terrifying ease, their advanced weaponry and shielding rendered all but useless against the enigmatic vessel's capabilities. "This is a disaster of catastrophic proportions," the High Arbiter growled, his cybernetic eye glowing with a mixture of anger and despair. "Our most powerful warships have been reduced to scrap, and the Dreadnought continues its advance, unchecked." One of the admirals, his face etched with grim determination, stepped forward. "High Arbiter, we must act now before it's too late. I propose we mobilize our remaining forces and unleash our most powerful weapons upon this intruder vessel. If we strike with overwhelming force, we may yet have a chance of destroying it." The High Arbiter considered the Admiral's words, his brow furrowed in thought. "You would have us gamble the very survival of the Dominion on a single desperate gambit. After all we've witnessed, do you truly believe our conventional weapons can stand against this abomination?" The Admiral's expression hardened, his resolve unwavering. "We must try, High Arbiter. If we do not, then the Celestial Dominion is doomed to fall, and our civilization will be consigned to the annals of history. This is our last chance to turn the tide of this conflict." Silence fell over the command center as the High Arbiter contemplated the Admiral's proposal. The fate of the Dominion, a civilization that had endured for millennia, now rested on the outcome of this final desperate gamble. With a heavy sigh, the High Arbiter nodded. "So be it, Admiral. Mobilize our remaining forces and prepare to engage the Dreadnought with everything we have. If we are to fall, then let it be with our dignity intact, fighting to the bitter end." The Admiral saluted, his expression grim but determined. "It will be done, High Arbiter. The Dominion will not go down without a fight." As the Dominion's forces mustered for the impending confrontation, the Dreadnought continued its relentless advance, its sensors tracking the movements of its adversaries with clinical precision. Aboard the vessel, Dr. Sarah Johnson watched the unfolding events with a detached, almost clinical interest, her fingers dancing across the holographic interfaces that controlled the ship's systems. "So, the Dominion has chosen to make a final, desperate stand," she murmured, her lips curving into a faint smile. "They have fought valiantly, but their time has come to an end. The age of mankind has dawned, and we will not be denied our rightful place among the stars." The Dreadnought's weapon systems hummed to life, their energy signatures spiking as the vessel prepared to unleash its devastating firepower upon the Dominion's fleets. Dr. Johnson's calculations had accounted for every eventuality, and she knew that the Dominion's best efforts would be no match for the sheer power at her command. As the rival forces clashed in a titanic battle, the Dominion's warships unleashed a relentless barrage of energy pulses, plasma torpedoes, and missiles, their crews fighting with a desperate, almost primal ferocity. But no matter how overwhelming their assault, the Dreadnought's shields held firm, the vessel's ability to manipulate the very fabric of space-time rendering the Dominion's tactics and strategies all but useless. One by one, the Dominion's mighty warships were torn apart, their hulls breached and their crews left helpless in the void. The High Arbiter watched the carnage unfold, his face a mask of grim determination, even as he realized that their last, desperate gambit had failed. "Impossible," he whispered, his hands clenching into fists. "How can a single vessel possess such power?" As the Dominion's forces crumbled, the Dreadnought continued its relentless advance, its weapon systems unleashing a devastating barrage that tore through the Dominion's remaining defenses. The High Arbiter and his beleaguered command team could do nothing but watch in horror as their civilization's foundations crumbled around them. In the end, the Celestial Dominion, a civilization that had ruled the stars for millennia, found itself on the brink of collapse, its very existence threatened by the unstoppable might of the human vessel and the determination of its creator, Dr. Sarah Johnson. The fate of the Dominion, and indeed, the entire galaxy, now hung in the balance. As the Dreadnought's systems continued to power up, Dr. Johnson turned her attention to the next phase of her plan. The Dominion's leadership had stubbornly refused to acknowledge the changing tides of power, and now they would pay the ultimate price. The age of mankind had dawned, and she would not be denied her rightful place among the stars. The High Arbiter, his face etched with a mixture of despair and resignation, knew that the end was near. The Dominion, a civilization that had endured for millennia, was now on the brink of collapse, its very foundations shattered by the unstoppable might of the human Dreadnought. As the vessel continued its relentless advance, the High Arbiter steeled himself for the final, inevitable confrontation, knowing that the fate of the Dominion, and perhaps the entire galaxy, now rested on the outcome of this fateful encounter. As the Celestial Dominion's forces crumbled before the onslaught of the human Dreadnought, the realization that their civilization's reign over the stars was nearing its end permeated every corner of the Empire. In the Grand Command Center of the capital city, the High Arbiter and his beleaguered leadership team watched in horror as their last desperate gambit to destroy the enigmatic vessel failed. The Dominion's most advanced warships, their weapons and shielding rendered all but useless against the Dreadnought's devastating firepower, were torn apart one by one, their burning hulks drifting lifelessly in the void. The High Arbiter's face was etched with a mixture of despair and resignation as he witnessed the collapse of the empire he had sworn to protect. For millennia, the Celestial Dominion had been the undisputed masters of the galaxy, their technological superiority and military might ensuring their dominance over countless civilizations. But now, that very foundation of power had been shattered, crumbling before the unstoppable force of the human vessel and the determination of its creator, Dr. Sarah Johnson. "How can this be?" the High Arbiter whispered, his hands clenching into trembling fists. "Our weapons, our defenses, all rendered useless against this abomination. The Dominion's reign is at an end." As the Dreadnought continued its relentless advance, the High Arbiter knew that the fate of their civilization now rested on a razor's edge. If they could not find a way to stop this vessel, the Celestial Dominion would be swept aside, consigned to the annals of history like countless other empires that had fallen before them. Turning to his remaining officers, the High Arbiter's voice rang out, tinged with a grim determination. "Dispatch all remaining vessels to the defense of our core worlds. We may not be able to stop the Dreadnought, but we will sell our lives dearly. The Dominion will not go down without a fight." The officers saluted, their faces etched with a mixture of fear and resolve, and hurried to carry out the High Arbiter's orders. As the Dominion's last vestiges of defense mobilized, the Dreadnought continued its relentless advance, its power growing with each passing moment. Aboard the massive human vessel, Dr. Sarah Johnson watched the unfolding events with a detached clinical interest. She knew that the Dominion's time had come to an end, and that the age of mankind had dawned. The Dreadnought, a testament to the ingenuity and determination of its creators, had carved a swath of destruction through the celestial dominion, shattering the illusion of their invincibility and paving the way for a new era in the galaxy's history. As the Dominion's forces made their final desperate stand, the Dreadnought unleashed a devastating barrage of energy weapons and missiles, its power seemingly limitless. One by one, the Dominion's warships were torn apart, their hulls breached, and their crews left helpless in the void. The High Arbiter, his face a mask of grim determination, watched as the Dominion's last line of defense crumbled. He knew that the end was near, and that the civilization he had dedicated his life to defending was on the verge of collapse. But even in the face of such overwhelming adversity, the High Arbiter refused to surrender. With a defiant roar, he ordered his remaining forces to press the attack, their weapons blazing defiantly against the Dreadnought's impenetrable shields. The battle raged on, the very fabric of space-time warping and distorting as the two mighty adversaries clashed. But no matter how relentless the Dominion's assault, the Dreadnought remained steadfast, its systems immune to the Empire's most devastating weapons. In the end, as the Dominion's last warships were reduced to burning debris, the High Arbiter knew that their civilization's reign over the stars had come to an end. The Dreadnought, a symbol of mankind's newfound dominance, continued its advance, its power growing with each passing moment. With a heavy heart, the High Arbiter turned to his remaining officers, his voice hoarse with emotion. "It is done. The celestial dominion has fallen, and our empire's legacy will be consigned to the annals of history." As the Dreadnought disappeared into the depths of space, leaving behind a galaxy in upheaval, the High Arbiter and his beleaguered command team sat in stunned silence, the weight of their civilization's demise weighing heavily upon them. For millennia, the Celestial Dominion had been the undisputed masters of the cosmos, their technological prowess and military might ensuring their dominance over countless civilizations. But now, that very foundation of power had been shattered, crumbling before the unstoppable might of the human Dreadnought and the determination of its creator, Dr. Sarah Johnson. The age of mankind had dawned, and the Dominion's reign over the stars had come to a bitter end. The galaxy, once firmly under the control of the ancient empire, now stood poised on the precipice of a new era, its future uncertain, and its destiny in the hands of a species that had emerged from the shadows to challenge the very foundations of the Celestial Dominion's dominance. As the last remnants of the Dominion's once mighty fleets drifted aimlessly in the void, the High Arbiter knew that their civilization's legacy would endure, a testament to the resilience and determination of those who had fought to preserve their way of life. But in the end, the Dominion had been swept aside, consigned to the annals of history by the unstoppable force of human ingenuity and the Dreadnought that had transformed the very nature of reality.